Hello YouTube, it's RizoRockets here, and this is my very first YouTube video. So I wanted to start a YouTube channel to document my journey, but also to help those who feel underrepresented in STEM. I graduated from Cal Poly Pomona as a first-generation student. I obtained my bachelor's degree of science in aerospace engineering, with the emphasis in astronautics. I graduated magna cum laude as well. But anyways, I wanted to make this video to introduce myself and also give my story on how I became an aerospace engineer, in case you also want to become an aerospace engineer as well. Or maybe some other engineering field that you want to do. Now, I always wanted to start a YouTube channel, but I was always like, I feel like it's too much work, I won't have time for it. But in all honesty, you only live once, and so might as well go for it, right? I hope this also inspires other, STEM minds as well out there. Share your journey, because STEM is pretty hard, right? Engineering was hard for me, and so I wish I could have followed someone's footsteps, who's been through there. So let's get right into it. So growing up, I had two goals in mind. One was to become an astronaut, and one was to retire my parents. So let's talk about the first goal. I was always that smart student in school. I would always get awards, get good grades, whatever, right? But I wasn't smart in the beginning. During my early years, I was put in a program where, I had to learn English because English was my first language, right? My parents immigrated from Mexico, so obviously I spoke Spanish first. And so it was hard at first. The reason why I became smarter throughout the years was because of my work ethic. Now, I feel like coming from a low-income family, you really don't have much choice. You got to work hard, be the next future for your family. So I feel like that work ethic made me smarter, if that makes sense. And so throughout my years as a child, I was always fascinated with how things work, or how things went up to space, or how we send rockets out from Earth. Like, how does that even happen? Wherever I go, I was always like, we would pass by an airport, or we would pass by a military base, or I would see a car pass by, or I'll just wander off, look at a light pole and see, I wonder how that works. It's just, I was always curious. But yeah, and so in watching movies, like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Interstellar, and The Martian, movies like that, and also seeing Jose Hernandez, one of the first Mexican astronauts to space, that really inspired me. And so I always wanted to be an astronaut. I didn't let go of that. Throughout my years, people would say, oh, it's hard, you will never make it, this and that, but I kept pushing through. Now came 8th grade year. My 8th grade science teacher was one of the key personnels that inspired me to continue chasing my dream. Now, he realized that I wanted to be an astronaut, and he saw that I was fascinated by space. And he was fascinated by space too. During lunch, I'd always go to his classroom and learn about space exploration or rocketry or whatever, right? And so that just made me even more motivated to chase my dream. I finally knew someone from my hometown who was interested in that stuff. And so I remember him telling me, and I would always ask him, like, how do I become an astronaut? Like, what's the path? What's the requirements? And one of the requirements was to get a degree in STEM. And so I remember him telling me, you can become an engineer, or you can become an aerospace engineer and go from there. That's pretty much what I did. By 8th grade, I already knew what I wanted to become, an aerospace engineer first, because I still want to become an astronaut, so we're not done yet. But where am I going with this? Growing up, I realized that once I reached high school, a lot of students lost their curiosity. They lost their eager to chase their dreams. Not all of them, but quite a bit of them. But I was one of the few students who kept my dream. Even with all the doubts and even with all the people telling me it was impossible, I still kept it with my heart. And especially in my hometown, you don't really see much engineers. You don't really see, a lot of big names come from my hometown. It was pretty rare. But still, I like my community. Shout out to San Jacinto, California. I graduated high school, obviously with a lot of awards, with high GPA, whatever, right? But you may think, oh, you were a nerd. Yeah, we know that. You were meant to be an engineer. Let me stop you there. Being a nerd actually helped me pay for college. Now, if you're thinking, oh, well, I want to be an engineer, but college is too expensive for me. And school doesn't teach you this. But you got to realize that if you get good grades, you do well throughout your K through 12, apply to scholarships, apply to grants, financial aid, you'll get your school covered. Now, I don't know how the things are nowadays, with all the politics going on, but, that shouldn't stop you. There's still scholarships out there. And that's what helped me. Especially growing from a low-income family, I really don't have much choice. I would have had to pull out loans and I would have been cooked, right? And I would have been in debt in college. But I get to say that I'm debt-free. This is where I said, I wasn't smart in the beginning, but my work ethic made me smarter. And I matured at a young age too. I started working at 15 and a half, was already driving at 15 and a half. So, I basically like I had to work. You know, I worked hard in school. I was able to get my scholarships and grants, and I went to college for free. And you know, the question goes, okay, could I transfer, go to a community college, and then transfer to a university? Yes, you can do that, but I went straight to university because of my grants and, you know, scholarships. I feel like at that point it becomes a financial decision, because, you know, you go to community college, maybe it could be cheaper, but it depends, right? And you also got to see, like, what's the cost of dorming, right? Because my first year I was commuting to my university, which is like an hour away from where I lived. It was pretty tough. But one thing I'll recommend is finding a job on campus and then using that to probably help you, you know, live there, pay for your rent and live closer to campus. That's what I did. And so as I progressed, right, you know, I got my degree. You can't just get your degree, right? Through K through 12, you can just slack off, get bad grades, mess around, and still graduate. But college is different. If you don't perform well, you're not going to have a job lined up after college. So that's why you should get involved in clubs, join technical projects, and network. And obviously get good grades. Because recruiters, after you graduate, they do look at your GPA still. But it's true what they say. C's get you degrees. So, you know, you can do average, but as long as you stand out, that's what matters. And people will tell you that, yeah, college is a scam. You're not going to learn anything. You know, I'm not shaming them. Obviously, you know, they found a different route, but sometimes, you know, like us, we don't really have much choice and we got to go the college route. And there's people that argue that you don't need a college degree or that they don't want to be in debt. And that's a valid argument. You know, you can choose a different route and go from there. And there's others that they prefer to go to college, and that's fine. Whichever route you choose, you always got to go 100% in that route, no matter what. So yeah, you can go to college, get your degree, but if you're not outperforming everyone, you're going to be jobless when you graduate. And a lot of my colleagues are facing that. You know, no offense to them, but the work you put out will definitely be worth it. You know, I would pull all-nighters, I would study so much, I would do multiple projects, and I would go to conferences and just network. And yeah, it was tough. And I see why people struggle, why sometimes they drop out, right? But like I said, you got to remain confident, you got to remain persistent, and go full throttle into your career. And also know what you want too. Don't just say, oh, I want to be an engineer to build stuff. Like, what do you want to build? Rockets, buildings? You got to know what you want. Just like how I did. You know, I don't want to get too much into details, but it's not about just being smart. It's about knowing who you know. That's how life works. You know, I graduated, and now you're probably wondering where I'm at now. I moved to Seattle, Washington. Right now, I'm currently working at an aerospace company that designs and manufactures rocket engines. So you can say that I'm a little rocket scientist. Obviously, job's not done, so we keep pushing forward, right? You know, I still have to reach my end goals. And the whole reason why, you know, I wanted to make this YouTube channel was to just hopefully inspire you all to do the same, right? To go chase your dreams, whether you're in STEM or not. Just don't give up. You got a family to feed, you got a dream to chase. There's that little kid in you that wants you to succeed. But I mean, hope this video was insightful. The takeaway from this was, no matter where you come from, you can be whatever you want. That's what I'm trying to say. In my hometown, there wasn't much aerospace engineers. There isn't an astronaut at all. So hopefully I could be the first astronaut there. But I'm one of the few aerospace engineers that come from my hometown. Be on the lookout for educational videos, you know, vlogs. I might do some vlogs, or, you know, other. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as this is only the beginning. Hope to see you soon.